I hadn't realised really how many comments you guys had left on the channel in my sort of hiatus of not really doing things. There are a serious number of comments for me to sort of wade through and answer. Anyway, here we go. Next batch. Right, so the first one, Video Superhighway. He writes, or she writes, it could be either, I don't know. Wow, cheese level, go to 11 plus. So this is in response to a video I did on the demo songs on the Korg T1. And remember, the Korg T1 is, I suppose, you know, the sort of granddaddy of the M1. They are pretty much share the same architecture. You can interchange the cartridges between the two, and they were, along with the D50, the sound of the 80s and early 90s. I love my T1 to bits, I really do. I lovingly restored it 2 years ago, and it's still sitting in my hallway over there, because obviously I've replaced it for the time being with the Oasis in the lounge, and I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with it long term, where it's going to go, and hopefully my sort of living accommodation is going to change a bit in the coming months anyway, so we shall see. But I agree, super cheesy, but then wasn't all 80s and 90s music super cheesy? Okay, the next one, this is a bit of a long one. It comes from Glenn Orse Gilbert Jr. So I can't pronounce names, honestly. I really can't pronounce names. So if I get your name wrong, I do apologise for anybody who I pronounce the name wrong. It is my worst trait, and I do it in business meetings all the time, so I do apologise. I took apart my Korg T1 to clean the piano keys due to spilling a cup of tea. However, and once I reassemble the keys, my power supply board sparks when turned on. All connections to my knowledge are correct. No idea what I've done wrong. Do I need to look for another T1 power supply? Hope not sincere, but all seems to be currently out of stock. So, I think there's a wider thing here. So I'll read roughly what I wrote back to Gilbert, and then I'll sort of expand it a bit. And it's in response, he actually put it in response to a number of Korg T1 videos on the channel. So, I first of all have to say it is kind of difficult to diagnose a fault like this purely in an email and correspondence, okay? If you've got something sparking across the keyboard, that means there is a short going on somewhere. That short can be coming from all kinds of places. So, as much as I want to help people when they are doing keyboard repairs, sometimes it is a little bit difficult just on a very short piece of text. So the first thing I would say is, if you spill anything into your keyboard, okay, switch it off, disconnect it from the mains. If you've got batteries in it, get the batteries out of it as quickly as possible. Kill the board. Okay, you want to make sure there is no power, because if you have power and you have a short, you're going to do damage. Okay, then you come on to how you're going to clean it. If you're confident enough to take the machine to pieces, and not many of us are, I mean, I'm quite fairly confident about taking these things to pieces because I've been doing it for years, but I know where my limits are, and I know where it is I need to go for an electronic technician. So, you know, there are guys on the YouTube. Marcus Fuller's one channel that I follow, and I watch him take things to pieces, and he is an electronics engineer. So the first thing to do is switch it off. Get the power off the board as quickly as possible, as soon as you've done whatever you've done. The second thing to do is, if you just spilt water in it, that should be fine actually, because water will just evaporate, hopefully, with no residue. However, if you spilt anything more than water in it, you're going to need to take it to pieces and give it a good clean. And by a good clean, I mean, you know, not water. Water will not get rid of this stuff. You need to use something a little bit stronger, and depending on what you spilt into it may dictate how you need to clean it. Now, I think I've said this before, and people quite often scream at me about this, but I'm a washing up liquid man. Okay, one of the first things I do with a lot of boards, if they're really sticky and covered in residue, is I'll actually wash them with washing up liquid. Okay, warm soapy water. Quite often immerse the board in the warm soapy water and then just wipe off the residue. And 9 times out of 10, that actually cleans all the stickiness off it quite often. Problem is, you don't really know what other damage you've done, so sometimes you need to go for something a bit stronger. You might need to use something like isopropyl alcohol if you've got some residue on there. Some friends of mine work in the medical industry, and they have a product called ZF wipes. Okay, I'm not quite sure what they are, but they're effectively the wipes they use when you've had plasters on and you've got sticky residue on your skin, and they use these wipes and it just neutralizes the stickiness. They are really cracking for taking residue off a circuit board, I have to be honest. But of course, because they're like a piece of towel, they tear quite easily, so you sort of rub them across, but they will, in conjunction with warm water, they will take stickiness off a board rapidly without damaging the board. So once you've got everything off, and when I say you need to take it to pieces, you need to actually get the board out of the machine as well, because you're probably going to have to clean the whole area around the board as well. The water or stickiness will go underneath the board, so it could be on the top of the tracks and underneath the tracks. And the second thing is, if you have to clean a board like this, right, don't switch it on for at least a week. Put it somewhere warm and dry and just let it dry out. Okay? I'm probably going to have loads of people screaming at me about this, but honestly, I've done this for years, and I have never broken anything by doing this routine. Okay, so as I say, let it dry out and then reassemble the keyboard. So quite often, what I do is I do this one weekend. I put it in the airing cupboard, drying closet, whatever you want to call it. And then the next weekend I'll start putting the keyboard back together again, and hopefully it all works. And most of the time I'm pretty lucky it does work. So the other thing is, if you've got sparks on a board, okay, now for sparks to actually start sparking across a board, you're probably running some voltage. All right, so you've got to be really careful. So 5 volts will very often not spark unless there is a short going on. But if you've got 240 volts and very narrow tracks, you will get a spark. So the other thing is, if you start seeing sparks, then you've probably got some issue with your power board. And if you've got an issue with the power board and you're not comfortable working on items that have mains voltage on it, don't do it. It's as simple as that. If you are not comfortable about mains voltage, do not touch it. Give it to somebody who knows what they're doing. Okay, because it's possible you've fried a rectifier, or you've fried a capacitor, or you've done something, okay, that's causing it to short. All right, let somebody who knows what they're doing do it for you. All right, I wouldn't want any of you to end up in hospital with electrical burns, or even worse than that, the other side of the in the morgue. Well, that's what I'm trying to say. Okay, so that's my answer to this one. Okay, so the next one is from Ruben Pascola. And he writes, hi, I did the process, but I'm missing the MIDI file. Do you know where I can get it? Thanks. So this is in response to me updating or restoring the T1 from a computer using SysX. And what I actually said is that normally if you've dumped the SysX down to a computer, then a restore of the SysX will normally restore everything. Okay. One of the things I did, just to make sure I have the proper factory sounds, and it was probably the best $10 I spent, was I bought a factory restore disc off the internet. Okay, I didn't have a factory restore disc when I bought the T1. I went and bought one. I've now got several backups of it, and I've also got a SysX backup of it. So, although I'm not quite sure where it is, I know I've stored it somewhere. But my advice is, probably the best $10. There's guys out there, don't begrudge them $10, buy the disc, and then you've always got a factory restore point, and it will restore everything, the MIDI the sounds, the settings. And the last one for this one is from Matthew Matthew. Is the KordBot providing the sounds or is the keyboard? So this was in response to a video I did last August actually, in 2018, where just after I got the KordBot, this was the first 10 minutes of play, okay? So the first thing to realise about the KordBot is it is a controller. It has no internal sounds of its own. It's designed to be used as a controller, an arpeggiator, or in future release, hopefully, a step sequencer. Okay, so that's what it's designed to do. It has no internal sounds, so the sounds you heard were coming from the Oasis. They weren't coming from the KordBot. So this is the point in the video where I turn around to you, my viewer, and say, if you enjoyed the content of this video, please give it a thumbs up. The way the Google and YouTube analytic engines work is that the more likes you get against a video, the more it gets promoted by YouTube and Google, and therefore more people with the similar interests to what you have and I have get to see this content. This channel is driven by my love of music technology. That's what it's called, the Music Tech Guy thought. If you've got queries, want to ask questions about themes or issues I raise on this channel, please, please, please do. Put your comments into the comment section below the video, and I will try to address whatever issue it is you've raised or whatever question you've raised. If it's something to do with me making future videos in terms of how to do something on a particular piece of equipment I possess, please feel free to say that as well. I can't promise to make videos on all the requests I get, but I do have a jolly good go at making most of them. Around about here is the subscribe button. Again, to do with the YouTube and Google analytic process, the more subscribers the channel gets, the more the channel gets promoted, and the more people get to see the content that you have obviously just watched. If you want to see my latest video, it will be in one of these two boxes on this side of the screen. Also, there is a second box there, and that video will be chosen for you by YouTube based on your YouTube preferences. I look forward to the next time that we interact, and I do mean interact because I always enjoy reading your comments back to me. But for now, bye-bye.